So this is my review of How Yoga Works. So when I first originally stumbled upon this book, I was on a mini vacation and I went to a yoga studio and this is one of the books they had there. Now, the way my brain normally works when it comes to getting any book is that I like things to be very methodical and, stated like in bullet point form, just give me like the things I need to know. So when I picked up a book called How Yoga Works, I assumed I didn't even look inside the book. I was just like, oh yeah, it's probably going to be like a clear understanding, like tell me like how the mechanisms and specifics of like every yoga pose and whatnot. If anyone doesn't know, I'm actually a yoga instructor myself. So I was like, okay, maybe I can learn something from this. Maybe it has more detail than that was given to me in my training. Turns out that this book is actually, and it's a story. An actual story. Like there's little bullet points in here at all. And normally, when it comes to character driven stories in books, I disregard them. I'm gonna be honest with you. When it comes to like any kind of like novels, even if it's nonfiction books, I usually do not read them. I like my books to be very concise, straight to the point. They're usually tutorials or of how like this is how you do this is how you do that kind of books. So when I first opened this book, I was kind of put back. I was like, this is a story. Like it's like tell me about a young girl that gets detained on one of her trips in India. And I'm not going to spoil too much of the book for you. And she happens to know yoga. And at first, I was like, no, not for me. And then I continued to read it out because I was like, okay, I'm going to give it at least 50, 60, 70 pages before I completely write the book off. I mean, I did spend $15 on it. Turns out that book was actually amazing. Even though it's usually a book that I wouldn't read, it has it in this kind of dialogue form with questions that people that practice yoga usually would ask. So the premise of it is this girl, she gets detained while she is on her way to walking through India with her dog. And the captain of the place that she's detained from has terrible back pain and he wants to learn how to do yoga to, alleviate some of his back pain. And she proceeds to teach him yoga, but she proceeds to teach him from a standpoint if you just never knew anything about yoga whatsoever. So of course, throughout the story, the captain has questions about like, how does this, that, and whatnot. And you would think that it would ask specifics between like the yoga poses and whatnot that he would ask, but no, it approaches it more from a philosophical view of like the way we perceive things, the way that kind of like how karma works. He even touches on karma. It actually touches on almost every aspect of yoga out there, even the nadi streams that we have in our body. It even touches that too, which is pretty in depth because some yoga instructors don't even know about that. So I was pretty much blown away when every single factor in the book, like it would come up. Some of it was very plot driven. There were some points in the book where I'm like, okay, that's not really going to happen. Like there's a point going towards the end of the book where she teaches like the captain yoga and then it alleviates back pain. I'm like, okay, that's possible. I can buy that happening. And then there's a point where she's basically teaching almost everyone in this facility, this prison or this jail that she's around, basically yoga. And I'm like, that's a little stretch, but pun not intended, but maybe a little bit. So yeah, no, but in the day, the book was great though, because you probably learn more in this book than you will from your yoga teaching classes. Not necessarily about how poses are performed or what weight or how much weight you should have on a certain leg when you're in Warrior 2, but you will learn more about the philosophy of yoga and what it's really about and what the message it's trying to convey. So that's what I really liked about the book. Again, towards like the end of the book, it gets a little more, okay, the plot's really, kind of like hammerhorn or shoehorned in there. Like this is for plot convenience. This isn't something that would probably ever happen in real life, but as far as the plot's concerned, that's what they had to do to push it along. But outside of that, though, this is a great book. I encourage anyone that's interested in yoga to read this book, or if you already are doing yoga, read this book, because it really touches on every aspect that you would really need to know in yoga in a way that is easily digestible, because it comes to you, at least for me, it's easy to digest because it comes to me in a question form of like someone in real life would ask this question, and a person that's a yoga master, being this young girl, is telling her or telling the captain how this is why it is and how it should be conducted. But anyways, that's my review on this book. Can't recommend it enough. Again, go ahead and I think it's like $15 now on Amazon. So it's a good book. It's only like maybe 400 pages, something like that. Yeah, about 400 pages, maybe a little less. Take you like a weekend to read. All right. Thanks for stopping by.